Let's begin! Mars Alive is a survival game made by Future Tech and published by Winking Entertainment. The game begins with you being betrayed and your base on Mars being blown up. Your mission is then to unravel the mystery of why you was betrayed and ultimately to survive long enough to find out why. The game only supports the DualShock controller and does only have snap turning. You can adjust the angle of each snap turn though in the options menu. Just like most survival games, you have a few counters which must be topped up. These include your health, oxygen, food, water, and you can also keep track of your temperature. These can be filled up by finding items that are spread across the surface of Mars. There isn't any real consistency to their placements though, which forces you to constantly roam around in the hopes that you find the right item that boosts your depleting stat. The actual items even being there don't make much sense as you progress through the game. They do at the beginning of the game, as items could have certainly been scattered around from the bases exploding, but because they start to respawn over time, it ultimately detracts from the storyline and just turns their presence into a necessary survival game mechanic. The one item you can rely on to be in a rough area on the map is different types of ore. These are usually found at the sides of the towering cliffs and canyons, but just like the items randomly on the ground, there is an element of luck when it comes to finding the exact ore type you need for crafting. When it comes to crafting, there's actually quite a few things you can make, but you do need to be inside one of the many bases that are still in a functioning order. You can make better tools, such as a pickaxe, which gives you a boost when mining ore, and you can also make backpack enhancers, which allow you to carry more items. These blueprints do require certain components to make. These components you can also craft at these stations, so there is a bit of inventory management even when it comes to making these objects, especially with the very limited inventory space that you start with at the beginning of the game. Luckily, storage containers can be found in the bases too, so it's not too much effort to transfer items to make room for crafted ones. When you craft these objects, they actually get 3D printed right next to you. It's a cool little extra detail, for the first few viewings at least. But thankfully, you can skip the actual 3D printing process if you don't want to watch it. These bases really serve as your main hub and basically your home. As well as allowing you to craft, they allow you to sleep, which you will need to do every so often, and eventually you can plant seeds, which allows you to grow your own food to use in recipes. The bases also contain computer terminals. This is where you contact another member of your team to discuss your situation, and most importantly, pick up new missions. Not every base has the same benefits found inside them. More start to be found inside each time you come across a new base. The map is very large, but also very empty, so walking from one place to another is an extremely tedious journey. The first walk to another base took ages, but I knew from watching the trailers that I would eventually have a vehicle to drive, so that did urge me on a bit. Unfortunately though, once I found the vehicle, certain systems in the game still made exploration a real drag. The vehicle uses batteries as its power source. These can also be crafted at the bases. The batteries do require quite a few materials to make. Some is ore, which isn't too bad to get as you know roughly where to find it, but you also need damaged components, which are random drops on the ground, so you're going to be doing a lot of wandering around just to be able to even drive. The batteries don't last that long at all either, so for real long journeys, you're going to have to make a few of them. Even simply exiting the vehicle has its downfalls. To exit your vehicle, you must hold down the square button momentarily. The screen then goes black briefly, and then you're outside. Admittedly, the transition doesn't take that long at all, but considering the sheer amount of times you must stop your vehicle and do this just to pick up one single item, because of the item spacing between each other being so large, it makes the process incredibly tedious. Not helping matters even more is the fact that you don't always face the same direction each time you exit. Gathering items in survival games should have an addictive element to it, a sort of enjoyable repetition, which works exactly the same way each time, so being disorientated each time you exit the vehicle just gets in the way of this. I also encountered a bug where the vehicle's interior would disappear entirely when I entered it. Sometimes it would reappear again when I entered again, but sometimes not, which forced me to reload a previous save point. I actually ended up having to reload save points so many times for other reasons too. Sometimes a mission marker would show me a location to go to, but on the way there, I was blocked off by a platform that required a key card, and then didn't have enough battery in the vehicle for the journey back to the base. And some of the side quests are actually on timers, so when some of them run out, I had to reload another save. There is a day and night cycle in the game, and time passes by quite quickly. If you're not already stocked up with enough stuff, you will likely miss these optional missions. It's pretty frustrating if you're a completionist. In the beginning hours of the game, I could look past quite a lot of these negatives, as a massive space to explore on a planet in VR is very appealing, but exploration is not rewarding at all. You hardly ever see anything apart from open space and some cliffs. The textures on faraway rocks don't look too bad, but when they're up close, they look pretty low quality, and every now and then you will notice in the corner of your eye, rocks in the distance disappearing. When you do come across a building or some wreckage, you think great, something to discover. But the more you play, the more you realise nothing interesting is going to be there. A couple of times you may find a package, but other than a small quantity of better crafting materials, there's nothing that really stands out or piques your interest. Even after a successful looting outing, your mood is dampened when you re-enter a base, due to your very reduced movement speed. Instead of feeling a sigh of relief that you're safe and happy that you can now craft and upgrade your equipment, you know it's going to be a small chore, just to simply walk to each of the workstations. The game will likely take anywhere between 8 to 15 hours to complete. Your completion time will depend heavily on whether or not you choose to do the side quest, and also how many times you feel the need to reload a save game. The trophies will certainly take a lot of time to achieve, especially as there's some tied to 3 different endings in the game. A lot of the trophies are unlocked for beating main missions in the game, and there is one here for surviving for 30 days. A lot of the trophies are bronze, and there is no platinum as a reward. For what this trophy list asks of the player, there really should be a platinum here. Mars Alive did start off kinda strong, but once you learn each of the game's systems, their flaws quickly become noticeable and completely outweigh the fun. There is too many things here that hurt the addictive nature of a good survival game, and exploration is just unrewarding. The game just doesn't encourage you to want to pick up the randomly dropped loot over and over again. This is certainly an unforgiving survival game, but I think most won't find the difficulty tied to the trial and error process that engaging. For what the game actually is, it is quite cheap, especially considering its length, but because of the vast majority of the time you're picking up items over and over again, it makes the game feel like there isn't much meat to it. The fundamentals of a great survival game are here, and an open world Mars survival game which you can drive around in is very appealing, but nearly every single system in the game does need some tweaking to really make it a planet worth surviving on. It really is a shame, because Mars Alive really could have been an amazing game. I really hope we see some updates to it in the future. As always, if you enjoyed this review, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more PSVR content.